This is Dr. David Castillo. I'd like to welcome you to CMIS242 Intermediate Java. Today's video is going to be fairly straightforward. We're just going to show how the package structure should be organized for this class. This is not necessarily the way I would advise you to build a structure for the industry, but it's a structure that allows me to grade your work in a very simplified manner. Otherwise, I'd have to reconfigure for each and every one of you, and this is a standard way of dealing with all of the projects and discussions, making it easy for me to get the debugger working and help you out. So the first thing that you need to do is install NetBeans IDE. And I'm not going to go through that. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that can show you how to do that. So here you see I do have NetBeans IDE up and running. I've already installed a few of the the students in the class. I've already installed a few placeholders for them. But I'll walk you through installation of another one and show you how to organize the package structure. Again, this is fairly straightforward. So when you have your IDE up, simply go to File and select New Project. And for the most part, this class will be mostly working with Java, and just hit the Next button. And then here's where we need to pay a little bit of attention. The project location is where you have your code based. In my case, it's on my E drive in a folder called Dev under CMIS242. And so here under project name, we're going to stick with project names that are our last names. So in this case, we have a student in our class named Jamal Bourne. I'm going to type in his last name. I'm not going to create a main class, so make sure this is not checked. And I'm not going to use dedicated folders for storing libraries. So this is pretty much just the default. Again, typing in the last name only, and then where I want this project anchored, and then click Finish. So you'll see up here on the left-hand side, Bourne has appeared under Source Packages and Libraries. So I'll click on Source Package, and I'll have a default package here. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I'll right-click on it, go to New Java Package, and here I'm going to type in Discussions. So this is the package structure for any kind of discussions, code that's associated with the discussions that you may want to send me or that you may want to illustrate. I can quickly throw it in this folder under your name and run it without any namespace collisions. Likewise, so now click on Source Packages, go to New Java Package, and then just click on Project 1. We'll be doing Project 1 next week. You'll see Project 1 appears here. When you get to building your Java classes for Project 1, you'll say New Java Class. I'm just going to do an example here, and I'm just going to say Test Project 1 as my main driver. And notice Test Project 1 comes up in terms of my default class, but it also installs my package structure here. So again, very simple to do. Just right-click on Project 1, name Java package, and instantiate your Java class. So likewise, I'm going to do the same thing for Project 2. Through 4. And I'll do that very quickly here. As you know, we'll have 4 projects in this term, so these will be the anchor points where we'll be putting our code. Now, we could have sub-packages underneath these packages, and that's perfectly fine. We'll get to some of that later on, maybe in a couple weeks. But for right now, this is where you'll place your code. Now, I took one of the students, Mr. Tammer, who posted a very nice discussion topic on how to test the television. He used static variables as well as instance variables. He has a driver class called Test the Television, where he creates a new instance of a television with no arguments to the constructor, so he's using the default constructor. Then he sends in, instantiates a second version of the television with some parameters in a constructor that he has specified to allow you to set a different state for this particular instance, and he prints them both out. Here is his class called Television. Notice it's in the package called Discussions. And then Mr. Tammer has both instance variables, which he's assigned some default values to, as well as class variables. And then down here he has a class variable called the number of televisions, and what he's doing with that is every time a television gets instantiated, he'll toggle the class variable. Now he's also done a kind of a cool and interesting thing here in his default constructor. He's actually calling his other constructor, this one, with the default sets of arguments that he has provided. And that way he only has one body of code to deal with. This is a nice little optimization that he's showing here. And then these are his getters and setters. And then down here he has a toString method where he's printing out the description of the television. And then finally he has a static member that is returning the number of televisions. So let's go ahead and run Mr. Tammer's class. Basically just click on it. I can go click on this green arrow. I can right mouse click and just say run file. And you'll see that here I run the file. This is the default version of it. So if you compare this to what he sent in here, it matches up. And then the other one was the one that he specified himself, different set of attributes, and then finally he prints out the number of televisions he's instantiated, which is 2. So I took his code, just dropped it under discussions, and this will be discussions for the entire term. It's a nice little place that you can test things out very quickly. So one more thing I was going to show you is a folder structure. And let's just take Mr. Tammer for example. So this is where I'm anchoring everything on my E drive under dev CMIS242. Notice here's Mr. Tammer's directory, and then here is the project file for NetBeans. Very simple stuff. You should be able to get this pretty quickly. Underneath source you have your package called Discussions, and then finally your code. We'll embellish on this again in a couple of weeks, but for right now this is how the code ought to be written. And so in your discussions, if you can just get in the habit of setting yourself up like this, and then when you post the code, post it in this form. So if there are any issues with it, or if you want me to test something, I can just throw it in this in your folder under your packages, whether it be discussions or projects, and very quickly test them. That's all for right now. I'll be doing a series of these throughout the semester. So this is the first one. Good luck this week, and we'll talk soon.